Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kira and today we're continuing with the background series that I started last month. In that video, I showed you 3 easy background ideas that you can create with acrylic markers, and today's video is going to be similar, however the medium we're going to be focusing on is soft pastels. As you may already know, I really struggled with soft pastels at the beginning of my coloring journey, but since then I've picked up a few tips and techniques that have helped me adjust to using the medium, and that's what I'll be sharing with you today. With all that being said though, I am still quite new when it comes to working with soft pastels, so if you have any tips and tricks that I don't mention in this video, please leave them in the comments below and we can all improve our soft pastel skills together. Before we get into the backgrounds, let's go through the tools that I like to use when working with soft pastels. The first is a craft knife. I prefer to scrape my pastel sticks into a fine powder using the craft knife rather than apply it directly to the page. I find that by creating a powder, it's so much easier to blend on the page and is easier to spread with tissues, cotton balls, or blending stumps to achieve a really smooth blend. The next tool is a kneaded eraser. I'll be honest, I have very little experience with kneaded erasers, but I've been really enjoying playing around with this tool. A kneaded eraser can gently lift or lighten areas of color without smudging. This allows you to create highlights, correct mistakes, or even create some really cool textures on your page. And then we have some good old Q-tips. These are great for blending small detailed areas with your soft pastels, especially when a larger blending tool might be a little too bulky. I particularly like to use them when creating a bokeh effect with different colors, which you'll see me doing today, which then brings me to my next tool, which is an electric eraser. This also helps me create a bokeh effect with my soft pastels and also quickly remove the pastel from any small detailed areas on the page. Next up is some kind of masking tool. I'll be using masking tape today, and while I'd probably recommend masking fluid over masking tape, it's just much easier to cover the detailed line work on your coloring pages. Your next best bet is masking tape if you're like me and don't own any masking fluid currently. Though if you are using masking tape, make sure it's a low tack tape. We don't want to ruin our pages, people. It may or may not happen later in this video. Yeah. One more tool that I think is an essential when working with soft pastels is a workable fixative. I personally prefer my fixative in an aerosol form just because it's quick and easy to use, though I do recommend spraying your pages outside if you can, just to avoid inhaling the fumes. And a workable fixative is crucial because it seals your pastel layers in place without fully sealing your complete artwork. This allows you to continue adding more layers of color or other mediums like colored pencil without smudging the existing work. I will be using some other mediums to bring today's backgrounds to life, but these are the main tools that I use when solely working with soft pastels. The pastels I'll be using today were kindly sent to me by LIGHTWISH. This is their 72-piece soft pastel set, but just a heads up, there are technically only 70 colors within the set because they've included duplicates of the black and white pastels. They come in this lovely box here with some foam padding to keep everything safe and secure. And what I love about these pastels so far is their vibrancy. Now I'm going to show you my not so great swatch charts. Please do not judge me. I covered them with invisible tape to avoid smudging, but I still somehow managed to smudge a few colors here and there. And as you can see, the vibrancy of these pastels is pretty great. Sure, the color dilutes a little bit when you blend it all out, but even then they're still super rich. I also think they lay down onto the page beautifully and just blend super smoothly. You'll notice that I've gone ahead and numbered the pastels because there wasn't any numbering system on the individual pastels themselves. The writing on the pastels is in a language that I do not understand, so I mean there might be some sort of labeling system, but not one that I can read. So I just numbered them from top to bottom, left to write, 1 through to 72. So if you're using the same set at home whilst watching this video, that's how you can follow along with the colors that I'm using. One thing I did notice with this set, however, is that there are quite a few similar oranges and yellows. Personally, I think Lightwish could have swapped these out and maybe subbed in some more lighter pastel shades, but that's just me and my personal opinion. I'm still super happy to have these pastels in my collection and to create some awesome backgrounds with. So without further ado, let's get into the first background idea. So the first book we are going to attempt a soft pastel background in today is Boules by Diane Dufour, and I realize I probably should have shown you what the page looked like before I masked it all off, but too late now, I've already done it. And basically what I did here, because I don't have any masking fluid, I have purchased some. I was hoping it would arrive before filming this video, but alas, this is my next best option. I've just used some masking tape and sort of cut out the shapes of what I don't want to be affected by the soft pastels. For this first background, I want to do something fairly simple. I want to do a very soft pastel, well, soft pastel of course, Kira, but like the color scheme wise, a soft pastel background and then do some acrylic marker clouds over the top. So it's almost like a foggy cloud scene. I'm going to be using my craft knife to actually, I guess, shave off some of the pastel onto the background and then use my finger to blend it all out, because I have tried tissue paper and all that, but I just find that my finger does the best. Even though it gets very messy, the end result is worth it. So let me stop procrastinating. Let's just get into it. So in today's video, I'll be showing you two slightly different ways that I like to blend out my soft pastels. The first method involves shaving every color onto the page first with my craft knife, and then blending all the colors together at the same time. This method, as opposed to blending each color onto the page one by one, allows you to create a really seamless blend between your different pastel colors, almost like you can't tell where each color starts and ends. The second method is what I'll be using for the other two backgrounds in this video, and it allows you to see each color more distinctively on the page. One method isn't necessarily better than the other, it just depends on the look you're going for. I then went in with my kneaded eraser and dabbed the page to lift some of the pigment. As you can see, this creates a visually interesting texture that you can choose to keep if you'd like, but I'm mainly doing it to remove some of the pink and purple pastel and add some more blue to the mix. If I want to get as much saturation as possible out of my pastels, I'll apply them directly to the page. Okay, it's the moment of truth. Let's try to take off this masking tape. I think this one's going to be the easiest one first. We just had a little bit of a casualty up there, that's alright. Now the other parts. Something I also want to add, when I'm placing masking tape onto my pages, I'll try to decrease its tackiness by sticking it on my shirt a few times first. Alternatively, you can run a hairdryer over the masking tape just before you peel it off to make the process a little bit easier as well. My main tip though is to go super slowly. Don't rip it off like a band-aid. We're nearly there, we're nearly there! Yay! Oh my goodness. Okay, that was so stressful. We didn't have too many casualties. That's all right. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is use my Derwent electric razor to just clean up some of those edges there. And then I'm also going to put in some cloud shapes as well by erasing some of the soft pastel. And then I'm also going to use a Q-tip just to get a little bit closer where the masking tape was covered, just to, get in a little bit finer there, like the cat's neck and over near this tail over here and stuff. So let's do that. Now, while I was editing this video, I actually had a much better idea of how to do this step. Instead of blending the pastel that's already on the paper closer to the line work, you could take some of the pigment off the pastel stick using a super thin blending stump and touch up the edges that way. I think that would have been a much more effective method than what I'm doing here, but alas, hindsight is 2020, am I right? Now, obviously you could leave the clouds like this if you wanted a more subtle look. However, I do want to go in with my acrylic markers. So what I'm going to do is go fix this with some workable fixative spray, and then we're going to go over the top with my white acrylic marker. Now, before I actually go in with some acrylic markers, I'm actually just going to fix up some of the edges here with my Brute Funa pencils. My cat just jumped out the window. Have you heard that? Don't worry, she didn't jump out the window. She just went out the cat door. But anyway, yes, I'll be using my Brute Funas because I think they are the closest color match. So I'm just going to fix that up now, and then we'll go in with the acrylic marker work. All right, so that's looking a lot better now that I've gone right to the edges with some pencils. Oh, it's not perfect, but I'm trying to get better at embracing the imperfections on my coloring pages, because sometimes the imperfections, you know, make the page even more stunning and beautiful. I know that sounds corny, but it's the truth. For the clouds, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this 3mm Artex acrylic marker, and you would have seen me do this in my color along where I actually use a water brush to take the paint from the tip of the marker to add sort of like a translucency effect. Translucency is not a word, but we're going with it. But yeah, it just helps dilute the paint a little bit and create more of a subtle effect. So that's what I'm going to do right now. When I'm using this technique to paint clouds onto my backgrounds, what I do is at the bottom of the clouds, I use light horizontal strokes, and then I switch to circular motions at the top to give that fluffy cloud effect. And shortly you'll see that I decided to step these clouds up a notch by using some different colors from the Artex 3mm acrylic marker set to create pink and purple shadows. When adding shadows to clouds, I always stick to the bottom half of the cloud and then dab away any excess paint with my finger if the color is looking too harsh on the page. At the end, I go in again with some white just to bring the highlights back to the forefront. I find this layering approach really helps bring some added interest and depth to my clouds. And then to finish off the sky, I decided to add some dots and stars using a variety of thicknesses, some from my water brush, some from the 3mm marker, and also some finer details with my 0.7mm Posca paint pen. And this is what the sky looks like once it's all complete with the acrylic details. I think that this is just a super fun and easy background that I feel like could be applied to most coloring pages. I am thinking once I've colored, you know, the bottom half of the image that I might add some streaks of smoke with my acrylic marker, you know, like over top of the foreground. So this is background 1 all complete. Let's head into background 2. Okay, so the next page we're going to be adding a soft pastel background in is Year of Witches by Uusikuuu. And I'm not gonna lie, I am very nervous to take the masking tape off of this page just because this is an Amazon printed book, so the paper quality is not as good and this could go horribly wrong, but stick around and wait and see with me. And what I want to do for this one is try to attempt some sort of galaxy night sky. You know, have the edges be darker and then have some fun galaxy light colors in the center here. So yes, as I touched on before, this is the second method I use when applying soft pastels to my coloring pages, and by blending each color out one by one, layer by layer, you have a lot more control over how the pastels blend together on the page. It definitely takes a bit more time, but it gives you greater control over how the end result will look. Again, I'm applying the pastel directly onto the page where I want more saturation of a particular color. Okay, so this is how the soft pastel galaxy is looking, and I think it's looking pretty good. I think once I add all the additional embellishments, it's gonna look really great. Actually, I will address this little blob here. I remembered that some paper actually came off whilst I was, you know, tracing the masking tape and stuff and making sure it fits. So some paper came off in the corner here, which is why there's that little splodge. Hopefully I can fix that, I don't know, during the coloring process at some stage. But before I take off the masking tape, I actually want to try and do some sort of like white paint splatter on it, just to add, you know, a bit of mystical star elements. So let's give that a shot. Now, this was actually my very first time attempting some sort of paint splatter effect on one of my pages, and what I ended up doing was watering down some white gouache, putting it on a thin paintbrush, and then just tapping that paintbrush with another. It seemed to work pretty well, in my opinion. My camera definitely got a bit of a beating with paint while I was filming, but it was worth it for the final result. It's time for the moment of truth. Let's take it off. I'm so scared. All right, so that's the border done. I'm feeling less confident about this part though. I've definitely been holding my breath that entire time. I need to breathe. Yay! Oh, I'm so happy. I was so worried it was gonna tear, but that's all right. We've just got a tear in the corner here, and I reckon I can work with that. I think what I'll do now is I might try to erase some of the smoke here if the paint is dry, and then just go in with the Q-tip again to bring it a little bit closer to the edges of the line work, but I'm not gonna try doing that too much because I reckon I can fix it with colored pencil if I need to. So let's do that. All right, so as you can see, it still does look a little bit bizarre where, you know, the masking tape was over these spots here, but I am gonna go over it with pencil to just smooth everything out, which I will show you. However, I am gonna now go do some fixative, workable fixative magic. And just like last time, before I went in with some acrylic marker details, I'm gonna fix up the edges with some Brute Funer pencils. You're gonna see here that I really struggled to get the pencil and pastels to blend together for this page. In hindsight, it was most likely due to the fact that I was working on Amazon paper because I didn't have this issue with either of the other two backgrounds in this video. Perhaps it would have been less of a struggle if I had used workable fixative after the pencil work. Then maybe there would have been less texture on the page and my Brute Funers would have laid down more smoothly. But how I ended up somewhat fixing this issue was by blending my Brute Funers with the colorless blender pencil from Prismacolor, and this gave me a smoother result. So as you saw, I really had to go in with some pencil there to make things look a bit smoother, but I think it's looking pretty good now. I don't mind the imperfections because it kind of sort of adds into the granulated galaxy effect that we already have going on, but I do need to bring in some more of the splatter to where I had to color over it. Okay, that's looking heaps better now. And just like the first page we did, I'm now gonna go in with my Artex acrylic marker, the 3mm one, and also my Posca one, just to give some variance of dots again. And I'm also probably gonna outline the stars here. Now, I'd love to know how you guys are enjoying the format of this video. I decided to try a slightly different format this time to see how it goes. Instead of just doing a voiceover, I thought I would try a tutorial that's a mix of real-time chatting to the camera, as well as voiceovers over the sped up parts of the tutorial. Let me know if you prefer one format over the other, or if you just really don't care. That's cool too. I guess I'm still just at the very early stages of my channel, so I'm still figuring out what I want my content to be and what you guys want to see from me. So please always leave any constructive feedback that you have in the comments below. And I do mean constructive because I'm a very sensitive human being. Yeah. And there's the galaxy background all complete. I don't know if I would have added all these stars had they not already been there, but I wasn't sure how else to hide them, so I decided to roll with it. And I think it looks pretty good. I think once all of the page is done, it'll make a real difference. Let's head into background number 3. All right, so our final background is gonna be in Rooms of Wonder by Johanna Basford, and I'm actually gonna do the last page. I'm struggling to get the entire thing everything in frame here. This is the color testing page, which is why there's all these random scribbles on that side. But yeah, I thought we could do this page, and I want to do a sort of, I guess, underwater bokeh bubble effect, if that makes sense. I've taped off the sides. However, I am not going to worry too much about masking the center here because I do want the center to be a lighter color, and I think I'll easily be able to erase any pastel that gets onto the key. We're pretending that the key is underwater, you know, floating away in the sea. And yeah, let's just get into it. I just want to say that I am so happy that I've finally figured out how to use soft pastels in my coloring books. I mean, obviously, as you can tell by the little errors and issues that I have here and there, I still have a lot to learn. But I can see myself using soft pastels a lot in the future because they just speed up my coloring time so much. If I had attempted any of the backgrounds that I'm showing you today with pencil, it would have taken me ages to film this video and complete every single background. Whereas using soft pastels, it probably took me less than half the time it would have taken with pencil. It's always really exciting to discover new mediums as I continue to progress on my coloring journey, because every time I discover a new technique or a new medium, it just reignites my love for coloring all over again. So if you're looking to speed up your coloring time, especially for backgrounds, I highly recommend giving soft pastels a try if you haven't already. I also want to try using soft pastels to base my pages in the near future. It'll be interesting to see if the end result is any different, and I'll definitely try using some blending stumps to see if I can get a more precise application, especially for books like Johanna Basford's that have lots of intricate line work and details. Alright, so that's how the soft pastel background is looking. I'm pretty happy with that. As you can see, I've definitely gone over some of the key element. So I'm gonna go erase that with my electric eraser now. And I'm also gonna add in some little circles with my electric eraser so we can create that bokeh effect. A little tip I want to share with you guys: if you're not super confident with creating circular shapes with your electric eraser, you can actually use or create your own stencil to make nice, precise circles. Obviously, you might not get as many variations of circle sizes unless you have a stencil that provides that, but I know sometimes that the electric eraser can have a mind of its own and go this way and that on the page, so having a stencil to keep you within a circular boundary will definitely help you avoid those eraser mishaps. Okay, now that I've got all my little bokeh circles in place, what I'm actually going to do is color these circles in with some soft pastels. How I do this is actually taking a Q-tip and applying it directly to the soft pastel to pick up the pigment, and then apply it onto the circle onto the page for, you know, more precise, detailed application. So let's do that now. I'm going to use a bunch of different colors and just have a little bit of fun. Alright, it's time for the moment of truth. Time to take off the masking tape. Alright, that looks pretty good. A nice crisp edge there. I'm going to go ahead and spray this with some fixative, and then I'll be right back to do some acrylic marker bubbles. Alright, now everything is fixed in place, and the next thing I'm going to do is actually use my white Prismacolor pencil, and I've grabbed a whole bunch of random circular objects in my house, and I'm just going to outline the circles onto the background so I have a guideline when I apply the acrylic markers. So I ended up using 3 different household items to create a variety of bubble sizes on my page. One was the lid of one of my mini glasshouse candles. The second was the lid of my Too Faced face primer. And the third was the ever-present 3mm Artex acrylic marker that's been used in a multitude of ways in this video. I'm now going to outline the bubbles with my Artex acrylic brush markers, and then I'll also use some of my other colors, probably the same as the little bokeh spots and maybe the background, to add little highlights to the bubbles as well. When it came to adding the highlights to these bubbles in a variety of acrylic marker colors, I didn't follow any particular method. I just had some fun and chucked a whole heap of colors onto the page. The only suggestion I'd make is to start by outlining your bubble shapes in white and then adding any finishing highlights in white too. Obviously, you don't have to do this. Art and coloring have no rules, but I found that starting and finishing with the white acrylic marker just helped keep the circles looking like transparent bubbles, rather than just random circles of color. I'm pretty happy with how these bubbles are looking. I'm just wondering if I should now add some extra white dots and whatnot, but I feel like I've done that to every background in this video so far. Ugh, I'm just such a massive fan of dots. I think they just add a little bit of something. So I'm just gonna do a couple, okay? I'm not gonna go too crazy. Hopefully. And then I also realized after doing the dots that I hadn't gone in and fixed the edges with my pencils. So yet again, I took a pale green Brute Funa pencil and just filled in those little spaces near the line work to give the final result a more polished finish. And there we have it. The third background is all complete. As you can see, those bubbles are so much easier to do than how they look. It just adds a more fun, whimsical effect to your water backgrounds. And there you have it, 3 easy background ideas using soft pastels. Let me know in the comments which one was your favorite. I think mine has to be the galaxy background. I'll definitely be playing with that one a lot more in future pages. And also let me know which medium you'd like me to focus on for the next video in this series. I've had lots of requests for Neocolor 2s, but if there is another medium you'd like me to focus on, drop it in the comments and I'll try to make it happen. Happy coloring, friends. Have a good day, have a good life, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!